Week one is here. The off-season draws to a close, and we are ready for 18 weeks of fantasy football action. And we are here with you to talk through the starts and sits and various other options for week one. But Ed, let's get started with our starts of the week. And I have 6 players for your consideration this week, 2 upon the same team. So first up, I will be planning to start RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins this week. But for what reason? Well, Denver are 8-point favourites. And when a team tends to get ahead, we know they tend to run the ball more, and they've got 2 competent backs on the field in the rookie and the veteran. So I think they could well be running the ball in Tennessee, who gave up the 12th most fantasy points to running backs last year. With all of these, we've only got last year's metrics to go by. That does change, but there is often some continuation. I don't expect a huge difference there. Both Harvey and Dobbins, for me, have flex value this week. Now, with all of these players, we are thinking really about the players in your flex spots. Your stars that you have drafted in the first few rounds, you have done so because you believe they are going to be elite this year. Stick with those judgments. But when you're looking deeper into your flex spots, that's where you might need those considerations. And also for your dynasty rosters as well. I also see a route that both of them could potentially end up with a touchdown here, adding 6 points onto their fantasy score as well, which would be very, very welcome if you are starting either RJ Harvey or J.K. Dobbins this week. Next up, it's always nice to have a tight end start of the week, and I am going with, in week one, Hunter Henry. Vegas were poor against tight ends last year, 4th most fantasy points against, and Henry proved to be a reliable target for Drake May, who sent 7.5 targets per game his way over the last 7 games of the season. I'm going to mention another receiver in New England who I am fading this week, which also adds into why I feel a little bit more confident over Hunter Henry. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we're recommending Hunter Henry week in, week out, but this week there is certainly a route to him giving you good fantasy value. A player we've spoken about a couple of times in recent weeks on a team that are starting to get a little bit more positivity spoken about them, and that is Trevor Lawrence. He projects for me to be a top 10 quarterback against Carolina this week, who gave up so many fantasy points last year. It was borderline embarrassing. 4th most to QBs, 18.42. 8th most to wide receivers, 33.97. Big Trev should benefit from Liam Cohen's system, and he now has 2 genuine top-class receivers to work with, assuming Travis Hunter is as advertised. And I think we could see some good things straight away week one from Trevor Lawrence. Next up, now, bear with me, Travis Etienne. We have been here before, but we've just mentioned Carolina. I should mention them again. Not only did they get big points to QBs and wide receivers, they also gave up the most fantasy points to running backs in 2024. I don't think they've improved enough that ETN can't give you flex value in week one, even with the split backfield. For me, I don't see ETN being the same relevance as we get through the season, but I do feel he is a flex-worthy start this week. That's the one I think might come back to bite me, if I'm completely honest with you, Ed. And then finally, it wouldn't be positivity on the TX Fantasy Football Show without talking about Emeka Egbuka, a clear-cut number 2 receiver on a dynamic passing offense starting in your flex. Yes, please. That's exactly what I want in my week one lineups. We've seen and heard nothing but positives in pre-season, and Mayfield seems to be his biggest fan right now. So for me, you can lock Egbuka in week one. Ed, which of those do you think I have hit jackpot on there or will do come Monday morning? Which of those am I maybe being a little bit optimistic on?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty much on board with most of those. It's quite interesting with the Broncos. I think it was Colin Cowherd's power rankings that I saw yesterday, and he had the Broncos as number 4, which I think is very high. I think they're due a good season, but they have struggled to beat better teams. So that's going to be their challenge this season. I am going to come to Travis Etienne. I think he's the one I'd be least confident in, mainly because the Panthers' rush defense is much improved. They've done some work in free agency, and they've also got Derek Brown back, their star defensive tackle, who will make a difference on defense. So I'd still be very wary starting Travis Etienne. But I do agree that Jags and the receivers should still have a good game against the Panthers. And Egbuka, I mean, he might be starting in my receiving slot, never mind a flex spot. there aren't many wide receivers that you take above him. I think we spoke on the other show about what Mayfield said about him, and he's just waxed lyrical about him. I saw the interview, and goodness me, he couldn't be higher in his praise of him.
Loves him.
Yeah.
This is always the trickiest week for your starts and sits because you're going off old metrics and data from last year, what we've heard from training camp. And some of that never quite matches up, but there are some times that there are more obvious routes from some known entities. And when we come into our sits of the week, I've got next, that is sort of heavily influenced by that as well for me. So I'm going to start off with Javonte Williams. This absolutely comes down to unknown. It's said that he hasn't been told what his workload will look like in week 1 in the season opener. That doesn't fill me with huge confidence. And it's just so murky in that Cowboys backfield. I want to see what's happening before I commit to any of those players rather than be told. And to be honest, drafted Williams, if you drafted Miles Sanders, who would do that? Or you drafted Blue, you have done so deep enough into your draft that you're not too fazed by leaving them on the bench. Williams could be a player we talk about more optimistically in the coming weeks. I hope so, because it'd be nice to see that from him again. But week 1 is not for me. Cooper Kupp is a player that I want to see something from before I play him. And he's a player that, I'll be completely honest, I am feeling a little bit more confident we are going to get some fancy value out of him this year. No, not the Cooper Kupp of old, not the wide receiver, one in multiple weeks, but someone who will be an asset on your roster. I want to see more from him, twinned with what will Darnold look like in Seattle after that perfect situation we saw him in last year. JSN being the wide receiver 1 in that depth chart as well. I'm just not confident in starter player that I am relatively confident will give us flex value down the line. But I'd like to think the rosters where I have got Cooper Kupp, and it is a few, I've got an option I'm feeling a little bit more safe with in week 1. Darnell Mooney, another player we speak quite positively. I think gets hard pressed, but actually is proven last year especially can be a real good flex value player. At time of recording, he's set to play in week 1 after being day-to-day for a week or so and avoiding a little bit. There's a bit of chat he might start the season. I only avoided that. Not for me this week. He's missed so much time recently. I think he's probably going to need to work his way back up to be productive. And I think London is such a safe pair of hands for Penix that's where he'll be looking. I'm going to go, Ed, with, I don't think we've ever, even on the podcast form, had a sit or start of the week there's been a defense. They usually wait for our get defensive on Fantasy 5. But the reason I'm sitting the Bengals defense this week is because I think a lot of people, when you go to, especially if you stream a defense, you look at which offense they're playing. They've got the Browns this week. Absolutely plug them in. And then you remember that, I don't know, you use the descriptor. I'm going to go with horrible, the Bengals defense. Is that too kind or too mean?
Much too kind. Yeah. It's apocalyptic, might be a better word.
So they are ruddy horrible. So don't, even though it's tempting against a confusing Browns offense, this is not the week to be going with the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals also love to do something bizarre week 1, and they quite like a week 1 loss, don't they? We've seen that recently. Finally, Justin Fields. This is a pro Mike Tomlin take rather than an anti Justin Fields take. Like most people for fantasy football this year, Fields for me is going to be a good value player, a player that I think perhaps, because we don't see it on the NFL field, we forget how productive he can be for fantasy. And for us as well, we sometimes inflate him for real NFL purposes because we are so happy with him for our fantasy teams. But I think Tom will have a plan for his ex-QB in week 1. I expect to see Peyton Wilson used as a spy, TJ Watt moving around the defensive line. And we love to have a go at TJ Watt, but I just feel he's going to give Justin Fields a hard time in week 1 and potentially keep him quiet. Any of those you think actually you might be tempted to start, Ed, or are they all fades for you in week 1 too?
No, I completely agree with all of those. I'll not go on about the Bengals, but I've seen nothing over the close season to suggest that we won't have a poor start, and I don't trust Zach Taylor. And you're completely right about Justin Fields. I think we need to remember just how good that Steelers defense is. It was incredible. They made the playoffs last year. with the offense that they had, and that was in no small part to that suffocating defense. So I think Fields will have a tough first game out for the Jets.
Let's move on to have a look at our game of the week, which we shall do each week. This week is my turn to choose the game of the week, and there'll be no surprise from seeing the jerseys behind me that I'm going to be choosing. I mean, to be fair, it is the game of the week.
It is the game
Ravens
of the week,
versus Bills. We can't really dispute that, even with the bias.
It seems like a waste of week one almost, doesn't it,
completely.
to have this game? Yeah.
We've been given steak dinner and I've been all right with a sandwich.
Yes.
Week one, I'll take whatever you give me week one. However, what a way to kick off the season. I mean, it's a repeat of the divisional playoff game where the Bills won 27-25. I've seen some lovely graphics of Lamar Jackson that have been AI'd or photoshopped, looking like the Grim Reaper going out for revenge on the Bills. It's a huge game for week one. And I think from a narrative of the season point of view, whichever team wins, their QB has been anointed as this year's MVP and the Super Bowl champions. And whoever loses will be spoken about, oh, they're never going to do it. They're never going to get it over the line. It's the same tired trope that we hear about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Let's just be happy we get to see, after several months of no NFL to watch, such a, I don't know, some slobber knocker of a game. I cannot wait.
Never heard that word before.
Oh, you've not watched enough late 90s, early noughties WWE, Ed. Slobber knocker is what we're going for. Okay. From a fancy perspective, I'm going to take a moment to highlight why we do not draft defenses in our fancy drafts for redraft. The Ravens were defense 2 by ADP in drafts, and the Bills were defense 5 ADP in redrafts drafts this summer. Both are unplayable this week. Let's be really blunt about it. If you've drafted what you think is a top tier defense, you're now going, oh, I've either got to eat lower points or I've got to consider now streaming defense and holding a spot on my bench. That, to be honest, when we get to waivers this time of year in week 1, week 2, are of a premium. That's kind of it's why we don't do it, really, isn't it? Ravens drafted in round 9, Bills drafted in round 11 on average. Just don't do it. There are high quality players you could have on your bench opposed to that. However, let's get a bit more into the fantasy perspective. Obvious starts this week from the Ravens. Yes, you're obviously starting Lamar Jackson. You're obviously starting Derrick Henry. Zay Flowers, we know his peaks and troughs, but you are starting him if he's on your roster. And Mark Andrews, especially with likely not complete full fitness this stage as well, you're getting Mark Andrews there. Forget about that drop pass at the end of last season. He's going to get some receptions. He should be of good value this week. For the Bills, obviously starting Josh Allen, James Cook, Khalil Shakir. Cook, despite the Ravens being solid against the run, is a start. I mean, you say that Allen managed to run all over the Ravens in that divisional round game. If you've drafted him at ADP, that would suggest that you think he's going to be a stud, so you're not considering that. If you've taken James Cook in round 3, I think it was average where he's going, you start him at this point because you got to stick with by what you believe when you drafted him. Shakir, Ravens gave up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers in 2024. And although the secondary has been much improved, I still feel Khalil Shakir is a solid start this week. Maybe starts. There's no one for the Ravens that I'm unsure on. I'm either in or I'm out. Bills, Coleman, I wouldn't be risking until we've seen a bit more from him. But some people are starting to make the case that year 2 leap is on there. For me, to be honest, he's a sit. But I could understand people maybe considering putting him in a flex spot. Sits of the week, Ravens, Bateman and Hopkins will 100% have their games. And it's going to be tricky to work out when they are. But some games there is a higher probability than others. I'd be sitting both this week. I don't think I'd even be tempted unless they were big value in DFS. Be looking at either there. Hill and Mitchell, they'll come into play when bye weeks hit, when injuries start creeping in as well. So I think they should both be rostered. Mitchell, probably not. Hill, I think, will be the back end of benches for some people because we've seen what he does. We'll be talking about both of them from a waiver wire point of view at some point, I am sure. Bills, Ray Davis, Josh Palmer off my radar, as is Dalton Kincaid this week. Ravens have always been good against opposing tight ends in recent seasons, and Kincaid has been iffy at best. So he's not a play for me this week either. That's where I'm at for fantasy. Would you agree with those, Ed? Or are you just like many people and sort of neutral as Bengals fan, just looking forward to seeing this game week 1?
Yeah, you just hope it's going to be a points fest, don't you? And I think that, there is a danger potentially that with such good defenses that it might not be. But I do think the offenses are so strong, and with there's such dynamic quarterbacks on both sides, you'd hope there's going to be big points. I mean, you talked about the Ravens' defense, pass defense. I certainly think the first half of the season it was catastrophically bad, giving up like ridiculous plays. But the second half of the season, it was like night and day. I'd be surprised if they started off in the same vein as last season. So I'd be a little bit dubious about my Bills receivers. But yeah, I hope it's going to be a good game. And like you say, it's a shame there's not more riding on it, because to go 0-1 would not be a disaster for either side. So yeah, we'll just wait and see who comes out on top.
Before we move on to Thursday Night Football, please do take a moment to subscribe, to like, and to share. Click on that subscribe button and join us throughout this season as well. Wherever you are in the world, we have obviously enjoy our UK fans, but also those of you stateside as well. Thank you very much for joining us too. Ed, do you want to take us on to Thursday Night Football, though?
That's it. Our first taste of NFL proper Thursday Night Football, kicking off with a huge divisional matchup. Obviously, got the Eagles looking to do what the Packers, Dolphins, Steelers twice, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Chiefs has done before them, and that is win back-to-back Super Bowls. Difficult to bet against them at the moment. Well, when we're looking at this game and the kind of storyline and narrative in general, just how bad the Cowboys defense going to be this season, and are the Eagles going to be as dominant in the NFC as everyone expects them to be? We'll start to find out today. It depends when you're watching it. Today, tomorrow, whenever you're watching it. I mean, Eagles are huge favourites here, and it'd be a massive shock, I think, if they lost. If you're looking at the obvious starts, Cowboys, despite being underdogs, you're going to start Dak. We've spoken a lot about Dak Prescott pre-season. I think he's going to have a good season. CeeDee Lamb, you're probably going to start Pickens as well, because he will get the workload. And you're probably going to start Ferguson at tight end as well. I think all four of those you're likely to start because you've invested in them, even if it means that they're picking up points in garbage time potentially. That might be where you start to rack up points from them. The Eagles should have a field day. So you're starting Hurts, you're starting Barkley, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. I don't see any reason why you'd bench any of those. I'd also maybe consider starting Will Shipley for the Eagles. From the work he's been getting in training camp, he's a clear RB2, and he's going to get snaps. And again, I mean, if you're thinking maybe the game might be done, he might get some snaps if Barkley sat on the sideline with a cigar. Who knows? But yeah, I'd consider starting Will Shipley. In terms of sits, you've already alluded to Cowboys running backs. I would be very wary of starting any of them this week. So that's Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, or Miles Sanders. Eagles were the fourth best rush defense last year. And also don't be tempted by Schoonmaker, the backup tight end. He's only really fantasy relevant if Ferguson misses time. So don't look at that and think he might be a sneaky pick. Eagles, we need to see what sort of workload Jahan Dotson's going to get as the wide receiver 3. So I'd be quite wary of starting him this week, just because, I mean, it is a good matchup, but I'd just be a bit wary because I'm not sure how much he's going to get once Hurts, Barkley, Goedert, Smith, and AJ Brown have got their share of the workload. So I'd be a bit wary about Jahan Dotson.
It's interesting. While you're talking, after you mentioned about the Cowboys defense, there was a period of time 3-4 years ago, Cowboys were always one of the first defenses off when people were drafting. Just look, they were ADP defense 17, so not drafted. I mean, like we said, you shouldn't be drafting defenses anywhere to draft, but that shows how, and that was probably based heavily on Micah Parsons maybe still being there at points.
Indeed, yeah.
It's an interesting game, isn't it? Because you want to see it will be competitive, but it's not the matchup it used to be. This is maybe only a year or two ago, but Super Bowl champions, the soap opera of the Cowboys. How many times are we going to see Jerry Jones looking smug off the side of it's a very set point as well? It's a great way to start a season. And UK time, we will be fast asleep because we're at work first thing Friday morning. I cannot wait to avoid the score and watch this when I get back from work on Friday because the NFL's back, Ed, and we can finally watch some games again. But we get another bonus treat early before the Sunday slate, don't we?
Indeed, yes, we do. And now it's on Friday, but I'm not really sure. Are they calling it Friday Night Football? You didn't seem to think so when you were doing.
Couldn't find anything for it. It seems more likely I've not found it. The NFL haven't branded something though.
Yeah, I think because it's like well, not a one-off, but there aren't going to be many Friday Night Football games. So it is the International Series game in Mexico. It's the first. The first of the International Series as it starts earlier than ever before. And we've got the Chiefs in a divisional matchup against the Chargers. Chiefs looking to bounce back from their humiliation. Are you having that at the hands of the Eagles?
I'd love to say humiliation. It's maybe more polite to say humbling.
Humbling against the Eagles in Super Bowl 59. And the Chargers looking to shed the tag of nearly men. Will we get a fit and firing Justin Herbert? I certainly hope so. I think the NFL needs a fit and firing Justin Herbert. It'd be nice to see the Chargers have a decent season. I think the thing with this match is we've got two very strong defenses. So I'm not sure this is going to be a massively high-scoring game, unlike the Cowboys and the Eagles. Looking at your obvious starts, I think you're going to start Mahomes, regardless of any narratives about him over the off-season. You're going to start Pacheco. You're going to start Worthy. And again, although a lot of people suggesting he might be finished, you're going to start Travis Kelce. When it comes to the Chargers, I'm struggling with must starts. Justin Herbert, I'll come back to in a minute. I think you're probably going to start Amari and Hampton, and you're definitely going to start Lad McConkey, who's their wide receiver one now, or almost certainly. When it comes to maybes, if I start with the Chargers first, I just don't know if you'd be 100% confident starting Herbert in this game. It depends who else you have on your roster. You've most likely drafted Herbert as a backup, I would suggest. And in what's going to be a low-scoring game, I'd look at what else you have. From a receive perspective, you probably should be starting Keenan Allen, as he's the wide receiver too. But I'm not sure in this game. Consider starting Will Dissly, the Chargers tight end, as the Chiefs conceded the most yards to tight ends in the whole league last season, nearly 1,200 yards. Again, as we've said, it's a bit dodgy comparing to last season, but that's all we've got to go on. Chiefs, I'd be thinking about starting Kareem Hunt, as he'll be heavily involved in the passing game and could be a red zone threat on the ground. Noah Gray, worth consideration at tight end, but only if you're really struggling in a flex spot. As remember, he only passed 10 fantasy points on I think 2 or 3 occasions last year, maybe 4. So he's unlikely to get you big points. When it comes to sits of the week, please make sure that Rashee Rice is on your bench. I've taken a punt with him in quite a few leagues, and I've had to move him onto my bench. Which other wide receivers are you going to risk for the Chiefs? Juju, Hollywood, Tyquan Thornton. I think I just read literally half an hour ago, Jalen Royals, the rookie receiver, has been declared out, so definitely sit him. But I don't know who else you'd be willing to risk this week. Chargers, I'd be sitting Najee Harris. Is he even going to be fit? He started training, but will they risk him? And I'd also sit Quentin Johnston just because he's annoyingly, consistently underwhelming. And I don't expect him to do very much.
I agree with most of that. I think it's becoming quite trendy now to be critical of Travis Kelce. But if you drafted him, you've drafted him highly for tight end, so you're playing him. Hampton, I think I would confidently start this week with Najee, with the uncertainty around him, not just because of Hampton, but because of the scheme and everything as well. It just kind of fits in. You're right, though, as well. Chiefs wide receivers. I recorded with Sunlight Bet Club. We had Byron from Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover Team. And he misspoke and he said Marquise Brown and Hollywood Brown. I think both those people exist because Hollywood Brown is the player who this is my favorite part of the season for seeing highlights of Ravens Dolphins about 3-4 years, probably 4 or 5 years ago actually now. And Hollywood, a brilliant reception deep down the field and looking like a superstar. And there's Marquise Brown who butters his gloves before the games. And you just don't know, do you? So now the Chiefs feel like we should have a clear-cut fantasy wide receiver in there. Xavier Worthy.
Worthy you'd expect to have especially with Rice out. Worthy.
So I've got Worthy. I'm starting him, but it still wouldn't surprise me if it backfired.
Yeah. There's question marks over him. Mahomes has got to throw somewhere, hasn't he? So I do think that's why Kareem Hunt could be a sneaky pick, because I think he gets involved in the receiving game. So, it's going to be quite murky with Chiefs receivers for the next few weeks.
Right, next up then, we have one of our favourite features we brought across from the podcast format. And, Ed, probably the favourite thing I've ever created because it's got our faces on it.
Fantasy Props, Preston versus Ed.
Goodness me, we look scary.
Sort of. I don't know, I'd probably walk straight past if I saw us on the street looking like that, if I'm completely honest. Fantasy Props is our competitive feature of the show each week, where basically we will put a proposition style bet to each other. We usually go back and forth on choosing those, and whoever pitches it, the other person gets a chance to have whatever the advantage may be on that. First year we did this, Ed won by a narrow margin. Second year, I wiped the floor with Ed. And last year, he repaid the favour by walking all over me. And it was done by about week 12, if I remember. We are going for our season-long prop of... We did a draft yesterday. We waited to the last possible moment to avoid any injuries. Chances are by the time you watch this, one of our players is injured and we're out for the season with it.
I'm sure last season with this, haven't two of your team were out for the season.
I had Rice and Danny Dimes.
Yes.
It all went wrong after that point. But what we have done is we have drafted a team. We set ourselves into a mock draft. Because Ed won so convincingly last year, I got to choose my spot first. We went back and forth. We have drafted quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and no bench. Basically, we will add the points together at the end of the season. Most points wins. If you have a player with an injury, that's how it goes. Tough luck. No more points. Our teams then. I drafted from the 103. Ed drafted from the 104. The reason I chose the 3 is because I was quite happy with Gibbs or Chase, or I've lost the name I'm thinking for.
Gibbs, Chase, or Bijan? No,
Bijan. There we go. I couldn't find, but that's how much attention I was paying to Bijan. I forgot his name, so I was happy there. So I thought, I'll go 3. I'll just take whoever's there. It gives me the slight edge on the turn. These are the things we probably inwardly think when we get our draft spots in draft season, aren't they? And Ed went just after me to make it a bit more interesting. And I realised exactly why Ed had chosen the 4 as we came back in round 2. And I looked and thought, he's going to take Lamar Jackson, isn't he?
Obviously, I took Saquon. I considered Jefferson maybe. But I took Saquon. That was quite easy decision. And there was no other decision to make. I deliberately chosen that spot because I wanted to take Lamar off you. And I think you sent me a WhatsApp message instantly with quite a rude word.
And well deserved.
You were quite sad. So I got Lamar.
I went Gibbs, and then after that, I was looking at whether I go for another running back. But when you're not choosing a bench, it changes how you think about it slightly, doesn't it? So I kind of thought, right, let's get another running back in. Or I was going to go Lad McConkey at that point, and I didn't realise what I should have done was take Lad McConkey, because that means I could have taken Chase Brown on the turn so that you didn't get Chase Brown. But I'm not as petty as you, Ed. You went late with I went late with quarterback because I knew, looking at ADP and with it being mock draft, that Dak would be there for me, and I'm quite happy with that. So I went early on my tight end. You went the other way around. Were you hoping for Loveland or a similar player to just be sat there in the final round?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously went Chase Brown next, and then when it came back, Terry McLaurin was very happy as my wide receiver one. Signed his new contract. I think he's going to get a lot of work from Jaden Daniels. Devonta, I think I was kind of hoping that Trey McBride would come back round to me, but he went a couple of places before. So I was agonising over Devonta Smith, and I really seriously considered George Pickens, but I just couldn't bring myself to select him. So yeah, I was left with Colston Loveland. He was the best tight end still available, and I think he's going to have a decent season. But yeah, I kind of sacrificed, with my receivers and running backs, not getting that kind of top tier tight end, which you've ended up with. So you should comfortably outscore me at tight end.
I think at the minute it's very clear to see, because we've been so used to ADP for the last few months, who the top picks were. There is a world where we get to the end of the season with our wide receivers, where we look and go, God, how did we manage to get those two receivers both on our team? Yeah, there is also a world where we look and go, why did we possibly draft those two wide receivers? That is, for me, that's the make or break for me, I think, is I think you're right. I think the offset of what I will get at tight end over you is balanced out by the clear advantage you've got quarterback over me. But yeah, we will probably every 5 weeks so total this up, add up at the season. Each week with fantasy props, each prop is worth 1 point and we'll keep score. But as a season-long prop, this is our tiebreaker, so it is worth 3 points to guarantee. So Ed got this last year. He didn't need it. I think I put him about 9 points ahead of me. But yeah, there is our fan. We'll pop this out on X and BlueSky as well. Let us know what you think of our teams. But also head down to the comments just below. Let us know, do you like our team? Who do you think will win? Put your neck on the line and get yourself on Team Pestle for the 2025 season. Anything to add there? Or are you happy for me to be sucking up to the listeners?
No, you do it very well, Mark.
Right, next up then, our final feature for the show, Sunday Night Bet Club. If you have not checked out already, please look at our previous video, Sunday Night Bet Club for 2025 season bets. The amazing Byron, one of our favourite guests that we get on intimately throughout the season, from Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover, going for some season-long bets. But we will also bring you a bet each week that is just our weekly bet to see what we would be, just an extra little feature for us to keep an eye on throughout the Sunday slate. And we have this week, Ed, the Red Zone Accumulator. I think I have some from Malcolm as well.
The Red Zone Accumulator.
We need more Malcolm.
I played it twice then. Have more Malcolm.
Brilliant.
Have more Malcolm. I'll leave it on twice. So for our Red Zone Accumulator, we're putting an accumulator bet on. So everything you select must come in for your bet to succeed. And we've just chosen the winners of all of the teams contesting the first window on Red Zone. So for the UK, that's 6 o'clock window, whatever the time the first slate starts, wherever you are watching around the world. We have gone then. I'm going to leave the first pick, but we've got the Cardinals to win. We've got the Dolphins. I think Dolphins, Colts. That was one we were a little bit.
I know the Dolphins aren't great, but in my head, the Colts are on track to be the worst team. So I don't understand why they were favourites over the Dolphins. But anyway, we've gone for the Dolphins, who are the underdogs.
Yeah, Cardinals over Saints, because once again, the Saints are in the mix to be one of the worst teams this year. The Commanders we've gone for as well. They felt like an easy pick over the Giants, although Giants defense isn't to be sniffed at. Buccaneers we have up against the Falcons. I'm looking forward to seeing. I look forward to seeing what the Buccaneers. Obviously, look forward to seeing Emeka Buka. Looking forward to seeing what Mike Penix looks like as well. We've spoken about the Jaguars. It's the Panthers. So we were going to be choosing the Jaguars. I don't think that's too shocking. But are you optimistic about the Jaguars being all right this season, or could they be more than all right?
Yeah, from what the closer we've got to the season, the higher people have got on the Jaguars. They've finally got a decent coaching setup. T-Law it's make or break for T-Law, isn't it? This is the season. He's got the weapons. He's got the coach. It's now up to him. So I'm not as high as some people are on them, but I think they've got a chance at the playoffs, certainly.
We've got Steelers over Jets. Once again, as we said earlier, I think the Steelers over Jets for me is a Mike Tomlin keeping Justin Fields quiet sort of take, and Patriots over the Raiders. But I think we were fairly unanimous. The one we really disagreed on is I wanted to go back to the same old well of this will be the year the Bengals have a convincing week 1 performance. Ed, as our resident Bengal, you weren't so keen on that.
I just don't see what's changed. I think part of the problem is our coaching. We've got a terrible front office and our coaching setup isn't much better. And I don't trust Zach Taylor to turn it around. And I think historically we've done terribly against the Browns. We've got an awful record against them, last season accepted. And I just thought, well, it boosts the odds, doesn't it, significantly if we select the Browns as well. So maybe I'm hoping to talk a Bengals win into existence, but I'm not confident at all based on our week 1 exploits over the last few years.
So the odds are to your right based upon your preference. We tend to go for decimals. It helps them understand our money easier. By putting £1 on, you get that number in return. So £10 returns £780. Same with dollars, same with euros, whatever you are betting. I always say, what are our chances? Our chances are very easy. They are 7 to 1. And all of these are individually, you can look at each of those except for Bengals, Browns and go, yeah, that'll happen. And then we'll look at this and maybe half might be right. So we'll check in next week. If we've won, if we've not won, we won't mention this ever again. That's tends to be how it works, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah. Yes. If we've lost, you won't hear about it.
Well, if you have made it this far, thank you very much for joining us on our first version of our show on YouTube. Obviously, we've been around on YouTube for the whole of the off season, but to bring our podcast format back to you in a visual format, we are very, very pleased to do. We will be with you on Saturday for some DFS, Daily Fantasy Sports Red Hot Picks, partnered with Fantasy Game Day, but we'll be giving you your values for DraftKings as well. And then next week, we're back on Monday evening, UK Monday evening time anyway, late afternoon for the US viewers, with our review of week 1, look ahead to Monday Night Football. And next week also sees the return of Fantasy 5, our short format, giving you just 5 morsels of fancy goodness for your consideration heading into week 2. Well, Ed, first show of the season in the books. Next time we are recording, we will have seen, finally, after months in the darkness, some NFL action. I guess we're done now, aren't we?
Yeah, it's only time left for one thing, and that's Malcolm. Take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.